The mysteries of this world are becoming easier to solve day by day as technology gets more advanced. This makes mysteries that we can't solve just that more interesting. We're here to cover these stories and possibly lead the unsolved to be a little bit more solved. This is Unresolved Weekly.
The movie The Jungle Book showcases the main character Mowgli, who plays what is called a feral child, someone who has been raised either by themselves or by animals. But is this also true in real life? Has there or could there have been someone to be a real-life Mowgli? Sir William H. Sleeman, a British administrator posted in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, wrote many accounts of feral children being found all over central India in the 1800s. These accounts consisted of wolves stealing young children from their beds as they were asleep. The village's protection for the children was a superstitious belief that stopped the wolves from eating them. In 1850, near the village of Chandor, a British officer tasked with revenue collection was traveling along a river. On his way, he had seen a wolf mother with a trail of 3 cubs behind her. As he looked closer, he saw a young boy around 10 years old. He was walking behind the wolves, mimicking them, and walking on all fours. As he got more information on the wolves' location, he notified the village, and they all came quickly. The 10-year-old boy acted just like a wolf would, ferocious towards his parents and attacking the younger children. When the villagers took him back to their village, he was noted as being slightly detached, with almost no form of verbal communication. He would point to his mouth when he was hungry, only wanting raw forms of meat. The boy would also refuse to wear clothing. He would never interact with any of the other children, but instead socialize with the street dogs, even sharing his meal with them from time to time. The boy lived off of food donations from the village and survived fine during the colder seasons. Sadly, this boy passed away at the age of 13. How did he survive for so long without prior knowledge of the environment? Could he understand the other wolves? We may never know, at least from this story.
On June 30th, 2019, in Gapyeong Valley, South Korea, a man by the name of Yoon Sang-yeop drowned in a creek. He was there with his current wife, Lee, and several acquaintances. These acquaintances include Lee's 2 boyfriends. Yes, she did have 2 other boyfriends along with her husband. One of Yoon's and one of Lee's friends, and importantly, a woman named Joy, Lee's boyfriend's girlfriend. The incident, according to Lee, corroborated by Joy, goes like this. Yoon was stuck to the shallows of the creek in a floating tube. When Cho dragged his tube into the deeper end of the creek, Yoon became angry and did not return to the water. Gapyeong Valley is a creek with sections deep enough that people can dive off bordering rocks. There were no lamps around at the time, and the valley became dark after 8. When it became dark, Lee suggested one last dive off the rocks. When she told Yoon to jump, he declined, but changed his mind when she put on a life jacket to take his place. Yoon, along with Lee and Cho, went up to the rocks. Lee and Cho dove first. Yoon was the last one to jump. Cho stated that she saw Yoon come up for air and swim towards the rock. She heard a brief shout. In hindsight, she stated that he might not have swam to the rock after all. Yoon might have been struggling. This is where Choi's recollection and Lee's statement come in conflict. According to Lee, Yoon had never struggled or called for help, though they took measures to save Yoon, and they were ultimately unsuccessful. 911 records show that they received a call at 8:24 p.m. It took them 30 minutes to rescue Yoon, and by then they were too late. autopsy revealed that Yoon drowned. Choi ended her interview by stating that she didn't know Yoon and Lee were married until after his death. He is introduced to her as a close friend during their trip. She only had known that Lee and Cho were dating because they were physically affectionate to each other. This is where the backstory becomes really important. 5 months after their marriage, Yoon signed up for multiple life insurance policies. At the time of his death, Yoon was in dire financial straits. He had filed for bankruptcy in 2018. He was supporting Lee, his mother-in-law, and taking Lee on vacations. He even had to ask Lee back for money so that he could eat. Search records on his phone showed that he had considered selling his organs on the black market. Due to the non-payment, the life insurance policy was scheduled to expire 4 hours after Yoon's death. Along with that, Lee asked Yoon for some money so that he could support her mother. Lee's mother stated that she never received any money. Lee was living with one of her boyfriends, Cho, during the time of the interview. A second opinion on the autopsy revealed that bubbles were discovered in Yoon's lungs. It meant that Yoon surfaced multiple times before succumbing. Cho declined to be interviewed. When Yoon was drowning, he was not assisted when he had said to have been struggling. Lee most likely saw the life insurance policy ending soon, so took advantage of the situation. Cold blood murder.
The POKAINI forest is one of the most peculiar places on Earth. This forest is in Latvia and wasn't well known until Ivar Wicks decided to research his forest's strange behavior. Ivar told reporters of the strange weather anomalies of the forest and mysterious properties of the stones, which we will cover later. Not long after, Ivar sadly died of an unknown disease, but luckily the research was picked up by Evgeny Sidorov. Evgeny reported that the terrain was hilly, saying that there were exactly 30 hills, and the foliage only grew on one side of the oak trees. The most noteworthy part of their research were the large stones found scattered around the forest. The problem with this is that nobody knows how they got there, although it is also thought that the stones could have been used as a compass. The reason for this is that the stones on the hill called ziggurat were laid out in the cardinal directions. Although there was a legend in ancient times saying that pilgrims that came from Europe brought stones and left them in the forest as a symbol of liberation from the sin. There were said to be around 30 druids, each of them controlling the weather from a hill. Incidentally, the weather in POKAINI is always good, even if it's snowing or raining nearby. Under one hill lies an unknown object. Some say it's a radioactive meteorite, and others say it's an ancient tomb. But a mystical side still remains unsolved. For example, why are many of the stones warm to the touch? How do they obtain healing properties? Where does the heat come from? And why do the oaks look like pines? Another oddity is that in POKAINI various instruments, clocks, and compasses work incorrectly, but the radiation, contrary to expectations, is in a normal range. Scientists have repeatedly tried to solve the puzzle, but they've had very little luck trying to figure out a reason for this. Could this be some kind of trickery or illusion by the locals? Or could this truly be the work of magic? This is proof that humanity still has... Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the stories we shared with you today. If not, check by next week, there might be something more interesting for you then. If you have any story suggestions, let us know by commenting. We'll be more than happy to look over them. I'm Bruce.
I'm Jim.
I'm Chris.
And this has been
Unresolved Weekly.